We did a live stream and we invited a number of former Jehovah's Witnesses to share what their personal life experience was and how they were impacted by the Jehovah's Witnesses' views toward higher education. The stories that were related on that live cast, some of them was just very, very difficult to listen to. Well, one of the questions that everybody kept asking was, what about now that made the Watchtower's governing body decide now's a good time to tell all Jehovah's Witnesses around the world that you can go to college now? What caused that? Of course, there is no official word as to why, but our friend Jack probably put it best. He says, generally speaking, JT, whenever the Watchtower makes a change in doctrines and teachings, there are two driving, motivating forces: something legal and something financial. And sure enough, that just might be the reason that the Watchtower has changed its position on college. So let's follow the breadcrumbs. We need to go back in time a little bit to the morning of July the 8th, 2022. On this particular day, the Prime Minister of Japan was giving a campaign speech. Round about 11:30, two shots rang out. The first missed him. The second did not. His security detail, along with all the medical attention that could be given to him on the site, was applied, and he was rushed to the nearby hospital. In the meantime, his security detail was able to arrest the assailant right there on the spot. Unfortunately, by 5 o'clock that afternoon, Prime Minister had passed. Now, of course, there are basically two questions that people are now asking: who did it and why? And because of that incident, it started an interesting chain reaction. Because as they began to dig into the background of who this assailant was, it turned out that he was a part of a high-control religious group. This group is known as the Unification Church, or the Moonies. So as a result of this high-profile person losing his life, it put the spotlight on the Unification Church. And as the government started investigating and digging into the background of this young man and how he had grown up, they began to clearly see something that was very disturbing in terms of how this group influenced the decision-making process of people within the church. So starting in October, in just a few weeks, there will be new laws in Japan that will allow the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare to classify forced religious acts on children as child abuse. But more importantly, this law will actually target what is known as second generation. These are individuals who have been raised in homes where the teachings of these religions have impacted them emotionally, physically, financially, and yes, educationally. And the Watchtower knows it's just a matter of time. For the Moonies, this investigation has come at a very high price, resulting in them losing their tax-exempt status and having to pay out over $130 million. On July the 24th of this year, just a few weeks ago, a multi-million-dollar lawsuit has been filed by 8 former Moonies that will put this second-generation law to the test. And the Watchtower is undoubtedly trying to do its very best to clean off its teachings that show that they have tremendous influence on the lives of Jehovah's Witnesses. Not only that, the public outcry about investigating this particular church became something that the government officials could not keep silent. They began to widen out their investigation of other religious denominations. And yes, you guessed it, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, better known as Jehovah's Witnesses, were included in this research of these types of religious groups. They are very concerned about the emotional impact that they're having. They are concerned about the personal choices that these religious groups influence people in making. And what they found in the case of this young man who took the life of the Prime Minister, the result of following the directions of these religious groups have often left people financially broke, having problems emotionally, psychologically, and the list goes on and on. Well, the government wanted to see about Jehovah's Witnesses as well. And so they became part of this research by the government. So the Watchtower wanted to respond back to the government's inquiry about them as a religious group. So what they did, they authorized a study to be done. Now, the study has been released on the Japanese Bethel website. In the links we've included, so in fact, we encourage you, go ahead, click on the link, download the study. Jehovah's Witnesses in Japan, a quantitative study. And the Watchtower goes on to make a couple of interesting points. It says, in January 2024, an independent research team conducted the largest ever quantitative study on Jehovah's Witnesses in Japan. So the Watchtower had this study done, but it's interesting they said it was an independent study. Well, sometimes you have to look behind the scenes to see exactly just how independent the Watchtower's things really are. You see, this study was not done by the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. It was done by an independent organization. But the organization that did it is run by a husband and wife team who are both Jehovah's Witnesses and one-time Bethelites. The people that they recruited to do the research, they too, the two lead people, were Jehovah's Witnesses. Of course, when you read it on the website, you will not see any mention of that. And this is really something that the Watchtower does when they want to throw people off the trail. Let me give you just a simple example of what I saw when I was at Bethel. In Brooklyn, the Watchtower was the largest landowner in Brooklyn, in Kings County. In fact, they own over $2 billion worth of real estate. As a result, the Watchtower was not well liked by the local people in Brooklyn Heights in the area because every time the Watchtower bought a piece of property, it came off the tax rolls, and therefore all the citizens had to pick up the loss. So what did the Watchtower do? Well, to work around that, the Watchtower got some very wealthy Jehovah's Witnesses, and they formed a company called Kohi, based out of Georgia, run by a gentleman by the name of Dick Wallace. He was a very wealthy Jehovah's Witness. So when they wanted some property, they would get Kohi to buy the property, giving the appearance to everyone in the filing office and the real estate office that this company had nothing to do with Jehovah's Witnesses. And here we see them doing exactly the same thing. They're presenting this as an independent study. Well, you have 4 Jehovah's Witnesses who are the major players in this study. How independent do you think it's going to really be? Well, please be sure to download this study and take a look at it and read it. There was a couple of interesting things that I thought was really amazing that they mentioned in this particular study. I just wanted to share just 2 quick things with you. On page 11 of the survey, the table shows that 20% of the Japanese citizens have college, university, or graduate degrees, in comparison to only 12% of Jehovah's Witnesses. On page 12 on the occupation, only 12% of the citizens of Japan hold service-related jobs, yet 27.2%, more than double, Jehovah's Witnesses find themselves working in the service industry. And we all understand that in the service industry, which has a direct impact on earning potential as well as saving and investing for one's old age. When you take a look at the things that the governing body has changed, college, beers, pants, counting time, clinking of glasses, what do they all share in common? For the most part, their personal decision matters. And the Watchtower is trying its best to distance itself from having the appearance that we tell our people what to do. They have been trying to get agency established for many, many years. That is basically, we don't tell our members what to do. They can do whatever they want to do. Well, anybody who's ever been involved with one of Jehovah's Witnesses at any level knows that is not true. The influence on the governing body is just profound. And now the legal department is telling them we've got to clean up our act because country after country are recognizing that more and more of their citizens' personal and private rights are being violated. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. And as they say, we're living in some exciting times. Best thing you and I can do is grab our popcorn, sit back, and enjoy the show.
This program was sponsored by Critical Thinkers.